Okay. So, thank you, Deputy Chambers. Senator Donnghaile.
Thanks, Chair Gormaigid, and thank you for the presentation thus far. There's been a lot of, obviously, understandable discussion around the identified deficiencies in terms of collaboration between TUSLA and the Garda Síochána and the other relevant agencies in relation to this very serious matter. I'm wondering, because you mentioned, obviously, you referenced the North, you referenced the facility in particular in the North, if you have any view on the current, because of the nature of our society and because of cross-border movement, whether that's in the instances of victims of sexual abuse and exploitation or indeed the perpetrators. Whether you're content, and if you have looked at in any great detail the level of cooperation and information sharing that exists between the PSNI, the Gardaí and indeed the other associated bodies with responsibility there. So in terms of the current setup, if you foresee, if you wish to comment, if you foresee any difficulty arising in what exists as a result of Brexit, and further to that, if you do have a view on it, whether there's any evidence that you have seen that the Gardaí and indeed the PSNI, I suppose, are future planning and preparing for Brexit and the offsets in relation to this issue. So, sure.
First of all, we went to the Rowan Centre in Northern Ireland. It's attached to a hospital. There are security issues in the north around police officers being full-time located in that centre, which is one of the reasons why that doesn't happen. The level of interaction is very different. We found that the services appear to work very well because they come together at that centre and you're bringing together different organisations, and it works very well. At one point, I think TUSLA and the Garda Síochána were looking at whether they could actually use the centre for victims of crime, particularly Donnghaile or northern counties, whether they could use that facility. That hasn't been agreed, but that is an option that would save perhaps some families and victims travelling. Brexit.
Sorry, how advanced would that be when you say they're looking at it?
It's not advanced. It was when we met. We went to the centre and we saw the facilities there, and then we met with senior managers from TUSLA and the Garda Síochána, and that was one of the things they had considered as to whether they could get access to that facility. That would need to obviously be agreed with a facility in Northern Ireland, but it is a wonderful facility. It's purpose-built and it provides a very good service. In terms of Brexit, and we haven't really been involved in that process around we've got our own personal view around the implications around a hard border. Hugh, is it?
Yes, Chair. Senator, firstly, in terms of information sharing, if I can perhaps suggest that, in my previous role, before I was lucky enough to take up this role, I overseen the unit that was responsible for exchanging information in relation to suspects of sexual crime within Garda Síochána and PSNI, and I can reassure you that the information sharing was both dynamic, very operational and practical based, and unencumbered by any concerns other than that of potential offending, and it was an excellent relationship with everything from sex tourism and preventing that sort of movement of people right the way through to those people who pose a risk to society. So it was a first-class operation there. In terms of Brexit, yes, I'm aware that there is significant planning going on within policing to try and ameliorate any risks that arise around Brexit. But where they are at this stage, I wouldn't be up to date, unfortunately.
So just to clarify, just in terms of input with your own responsibility in terms of the civic dialogues held by the government or any submissions there, you haven't been afforded the opportunity just to make your own submission, if appropriate. I mean, you can tell me if you don't view that within your remit. I would contest it would be a valuable input to have, but I'm just curious to try and tease that out, because I suppose it boils down to the mechanics of a lot of this stuff. I want to steer clear, understandably, of the bigger political dynamics at play, because we all know the difficulty they're in. But when we get down to the nuts and bolts of this, on one hand, if we're hearing that and I take you at your word, Mr. Hume, in terms of the information sharing, if that's the case, then A, we don't want anything to happen that damages that or undermines that. But secondly, the inevitable question for me is, what good is the information sharing if it's of such a high standard, if it's then going to go to one of the bodies and not be dealt with appropriately in terms of some of the problems that you've identified with the information sharing and other related matters within the Gardaí as well. So it was really just to get a view primarily on Brexit and the current status of InfoShare.
We haven't been officially engaged. What I would say is we're about to go to Northern Ireland to meet our counterparts.
Okay.
To talk about how we're going to work together in the future and what the implications are, and that's one of the agenda items that we would discuss, because we're very keen to do work with our counterparts. They quite often come down when they're doing an inspection and look at issues down here, and we go to the north because it's the nearest border, and there's good learning to be had in both jurisdictions. So we want to maintain that relationship. We're happy to give our professional advice. One of the things we can do in the inspector is provide advice. And we think we should do that more often to the policing authority. And the Minister has asked us recently to look at entry levels, and we're actually giving advice to the Minister rather than an inspection. So we think our policing skills add value. And we also look for international best practice, which is one of the things we do. If it works somewhere very well somewhere else, it might be able to be transferred to these shores and implemented here.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Senator, you're okay?
Sinead, yep.
Deputy Paul.